Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Janeen Lankowski on the podcast. So many people have talked about her on this podcast already, so it's great that we finally have her on right now. She's known as, basically the posing master. She's even has it on her Skype thing. She's the posing Jedi master, and I was like, hey, that's an accurate title, so I'll let her use that. But she's coming to us all the way from Florida, where oh my god, it's negative 5, 8 degrees. I think it was last time I checked here in Minnesota. So we're not having the best time up here, but she's on to share her bodybuilding journey and just talk all things health and fitness. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Janeen, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Ryan, for having me.
Well, I gotta ask first off, because I love to torture myself, what is the weather like in Florida today?
I have to actually look it up.
Okay,
So give me a second because I never know. My apartment's colder than outside. It's 70. We've had a lot of rain. We've had rain all morning, so I'm surprised it's 70. But
God.
we did have a cold winter.
It
stayed at 43. That's cold for us.
43. Yeah. Well,
but you got to remember by the ocean.
Yeah.
That breeze, it hits you when our blood is thin being down in the south.
Well, I was gonna say, here's the thing. I have friends that live up in Duluth, which is right by Lake Superior, and it's like negative 20 degrees now up there just because of that big lake that they have. But yeah, that is just ridiculous. And I won't give her so much crap because she's originally from Canada, so she knows what winter actually is.
Yes,
so,
I know what winter is in the snow belt capital.
Yeah. So she knows what winter is, so I won't give her too much of a hard time on here. But yeah, I have some of these guests on from the south who they're just like you, where they're just like, yeah, it's 45 degrees outside, and I got to bundle up, and I was like, that's streaking weather right now for people that where I'm from, basically. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. But before we get too much into that, because I don't want to depress everyone and be like, God, I don't want to listen to this just talking about winter weather woes. Why don't you give us your backstory on what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're currently at right now?
Okay, well, no surprise. I started gymnastics at 2.5, and from there I went to nationals. I started nationals when I was about 7. So I started gymnastics at a very young age, along with other sports like track and field and football and hockey, soccer, all those kinds of sports. I was a very active child, but gymnastics excelled along with dance. And then 1999, I got injured before Seoul Olympics, the Olympic tryouts, and destroyed my leg really bad. And pretty much my gymnastics career ended then. And I did rehab and came back as a gymnastics coach, choreographer there, and then hit the weight room when I hit into high school. So been lifting over 27 years. And muscle also saved my life. I was in a major car accident in 1999 as I was getting ready for my first fitness competition. And because what does gymnasts do after? We want to still be healthy and fit. And, we all have that competitive edge. So I was getting ready for fitness, and I was T-boned 2 weeks before the show. So I was in ICU and had internal injuries, separated shoulder, broken hand, crushed foot, a whole whack of stuff. But through the fact that I had so much muscle on me, that helped me and saved my life from the car accident. So I'm truly grateful for that. And that is one of my big motivations to keep going all the time, because it has saved my life in many ways, from car accidents to dealing with both my parents' deaths, a lot of friends that I've lost, just things like that, everyday life. Whenever you're stressed or anything, the best place to go is to the gym. Like that's the simplest way, and it's always going to be a part of my life. Even until, like, my friends used to say in high school, you're probably going to be 100 wearing spandex. And if you never know, I might be. My great aunt's 101, so you never know.
Well, and let's be honest. The gym that's free therapy, basically. So, for anyone out there, that's just that's amazing. But I always just found that so fascinating about gymnasts, where it's like every other athlete peaks when they're like in their late 20s, usually, or their mid 20s. Gymnasts, you're like what, like 13, 14, and you're getting ready to go to the Olympics. And it's like no other sport has that, where you're that young and getting ready for that. But also with gymnastics, yeah, you're already so developed muscularly. Do you really think that helped you out so much when it came to making that transition into bodybuilding, just knowing that you already had that background of, a sport where you really need to be in really great shape?
Yeah, totally. That gymnastics has totally been a huge staple for my development. I also come from athletic parents too. So my mom was one of the first female bodybuilders in our town back in the day, and then my dad was a hockey player and a baseball coach. So AAA and baseball for the Kitchener Dodgers, which is a level under the Blue Jays. So I've always, you know, I'm lucky that I have my dad's tininess, but my mom's strength.
Which, I mean, I'm 6'3", so when you say tiny, I have no idea what that even means, but, I
Okay,
mean,
so I'm 5'3".
hey, so we're good. There's a good foot difference right there. But I mean, that's why I love having, if I get like a 6 foot on the podcast, I was like, finally, we have another person who understands the struggles of being a tall person in the gym. But hey, it's. I mean, you picked the right sport because bodybuilding, that's one of those sports where people don't understand. It's like the shorter that you are, generally is going to be more successful in the sport, just because you don't have those long, lengthy levers basically that you got to stack on all this size to. But when you were getting started in bodybuilding, was there any reservations or myths that you had about the sport, or was it just one of those things where you just looked at it and you said, "Oh, this seems like that would be a great thing to do," and you just jumped all in?
I never had any myths about it really. Um, I've always been what you could say a gym rat. So if I wasn't doing my own strength and conditioning from being a gymnast, I was interested in the weights. And my parents bought me a small little weight set that was in the basement of our house. So when I was doing gymnastics, my dad was like, "Well, you can lift a little bit of weight and put, because I want you to be able to do these skills." It's like they already had all these goals for me, and I just did what I could to achieve all those goals. And so that's how it kind of really happened. And then later on, when I got really into bodybuilding, it was funny because my parents couldn't really accept it because I'm supposed to be this girl and I'm supposed to look a certain way because I was growing, my body was changing, and my parents were not sure. It's like I don't know. So my mom, when she never got to see me compete, and my dad saw me compete at nationals one time in Edmonton, and he had a time of his life out there meeting like all my photographers, and there's a huge Ukrainian Polish community, so he was missing for a few hours because he was having so much fun out there. So that was his first and only show he ever saw me compete in. And then when I did turn pro in 2011, he died just a few months before um, for that show. But I know both my parents are looking down at me and knowing that, man, the youngest of five is really kicking some serious ass right now, doing something that she loves and is able to inspire other people, women and men, to go after their dreams and go after their passion in the fitness world.
Well, you mentioned that what your parents thought. What were your siblings' opinions on you doing bodybuilding?
Well, my older sister and I are really tight. She, dieting with bodybuilding when you first start out can be very hard, and I was, when you work with the wrong people, you kind of get mood swings and weird things. You have no idea can I swear?
Yeah, yeah, you can. I'll bleep it out, but yeah, go ahead.
What the bleep is going on. So, you know, we had a little bit of a rough patch at one time. My one sister, she doesn't really get it. She just says that, that's my sister. She's a big bodybuilder, blah, blah, blah. And then our brother Pat, who's like a stepbrother to us, grew up in our house. He just goes, "When you see my sister, just say holy because that's all I can explain. You won't understand because my sister-in-law is from Japan, so she totally different thing, right?" So overall, now I know that my older sister is like totally ecstatic. Like she's very supportive of what I do, and she knows I'm good at what I do with clients and with my own self. And that's pretty much it. My other sister, I don't know. We haven't spoken in probably about 10 years since my dad died. So it happens. You grow out of family sometimes.
No, yeah, I totally understand that, and I mean, I love to talk genetics on this podcast too because so many people don't understand that look that people have. It's like, oh my god, I want her arms, I want his abs, I want their back. People just don't understand. No, you cannot be that. You can only be the best version of yourself. But whenever someone first gets started, everyone always has that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to, train as much, and then they have that one body part that just lags behind that they have to train to oblivion to get to catch up to everything else. What were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
I have to say, I was pretty balanced all the way through because of how I trained as a gymnast and how I started training as a bodybuilder. I trained everything how it's supposed to be trained. I never overtrained anything at all. Um, Now I think I still am I think I am still pretty balanced. There's always things you want to improve, right? So bodybuilders are never satisfied. We always have something else we want to reach for to better ourselves. So I'm balanced, but I can always be better. That's what we say. There's always room for improvement.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's just another fascinating thing is that, once you enter this lifestyle, be prepared to, getting into that never ending cycle of I'm never good enough. But, hey, that's one positive thing about this lifestyle too, is that, I mean, you always have stuff to work on. But nutrition is one thing that, I mean, is not talked about as much as it should be. And it's one thing that, is the vast amount of changes that you're going to see is through nutrition. But what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you first got started in this lifestyle?
Um, just dealing with, as I was a gymnast, and that's my root, like my groundwork is I dealt with anorexia and bulimia my whole life because when I was an elite gymnast, I weighed 74 pounds for 4.5 years. So like I didn't even know what junk food was at one point. So now as an adult and a professional athlete, and I work with a lot of clients on their meal plans and guidance, you learn, and I went to school with for a lot of it too. um, you learn what you need and what you don't need. And any habit, it takes 21 days to break a bad habit to get into a good habit. And just knowing that food is important. So I eat for fuel. I don't necessarily eat for taste. That's how I gear my food and my way of thinking, because it is fuel. And it shouldn't be like, oh, I want to eat that whole, lemon pie or whatever. That's the only thing that popped in my head. But you know what I'm saying is you don't need to eat it all. You can have a little bit from time to time, like to satisfy you. Now with prep, that's a little bit different. But I call it a treat meal versus a cheat meal. A treat meal, like you've done really well and your body needs a treat every once in a while so that it can speed up your metabolism. And that is totally fine. It's not that you're going to eat a treat meal for the whole day, which I've had clients say, "Oh yeah, I ate for a whole day." I'm like, "What?" It said one meal. So you deal with that kind of stuff, and then of course having the right supplementation in and making sure you have your vitamins, because food is mass produced now. It's not top quality like it was when our parents were young. So you have to make sure you have vitamins and supplements to get the right nutrients in each and every day. And if you're lacking that, you're going to feel it in the gym, or you're going to feel it in your mind focus, just with everyday life.
And that's another thing too, yeah, that people do not understand is that, yeah, with how the food is different. I mean, yeah, don't even get me started on that because that's a whole podcast in and of itself where I'm just like, oh my God, if only they could, make them the way that they did back then. But I mean, along with, just when you enter that prep, I mean, your mind just goes completely, just in a different way just because everything's just so scientific then. I mean, you got to get your right amount of food, you got to get all of your workouts in. What is that like for you when your brain sort of switches into that prep mode where everything just becomes, so much more difficult, I'd say, for most of the competitors. How do you make that switch internally, just knowing that like, okay, this is where I really got to hunker down now?
It's as soon as that date gets on the calendar, and okay, I'm doing a 16-week prep, or I'm doing 20-week prep. Um, the mindset's there. It's like as soon as that flag goes down, kind of like a race, you're on. And so it's all about scheduling how your day goes. You got to know when you're going to do your cardio. You got to know how many clients you're going to see in a day. You've got to figure out what works best for you and not get frustrated, because as soon as you get frustrated with it, then everything else goes south. You got to just kind of go with the flow and roll with the punches. Like, not every day is going to be perfect. Not every day is going to like sit exactly how you scheduled it. I have, people that call me out of the blue. Hey, can you fit me in for posing like right now? Because I'm like 2 weeks out of show. And I'm like, dude, you should, you should have been posing 8 to 10 weeks out of show. So, and I'm always one of those trainers that I'll try and fit them in. But if it messes in with my schedule, with my training, you have to be a little selfish at times. So I block off certain times for certain things. For me, of course, choreography is always on a Friday because I have my studio time set. So things like that. Weekends, I have a little bit more flexibility with posing, so I can do more virtual posing, and I can still get my training in because I have one gym that's a 24-hour gym that I train at and work at. and one that is not, but you can get everything in. I have my own cardio equipment here at my house as well, which always helps.
Well, and I mean, let's get right into the thick of it because I mean, you're known as one of the best posers, if not the best poser in female bodybuilding. And I mean, I always ask people how difficult posing is for them, and for you, it doesn't seem like it's that much. But what is your journey with posing been like? Were you always this good at posing, or was it something that you just developed over time, where you just are just known as one of the best?
Um, I remember my very first bodybuilding show. It was in Canada, and I had a judge tell me I didn't know how to do a lat spread, and I was like, "What?" And so I back then we didn't really have digital phones, right? They weren't as popular, so I had to wait for the photos to come out. And I was looking at them and I was analyzing it, and I was like, "No, I think I know what I'm doing here." And then you kind of find out why that person said it, because he was a young judge trying to get to know me. The wrong way to get to know me, for for starters. But I just kind of like watched how people posed. I watched how people moved, and then I'd pose for my mom, and my mom was really good at knowing what was right and wrong. And I'd pose in front of her, and she'd be brutally honest. Like, there was no holding back. So she'd say, "No, that looks like," or "That looks good," or "You need to do this." So at the start, I think it was my mom that kind of like let me do what I needed to do, and then she kind of critiqued me a little bit, and then I just watching and learning. And yeah, we all make mistakes. I wasn't perfect right out the gate. You had to learn, right? But I knew how to hold myself on stage, and I always took time in my posing, and I posed every day, like every day for like 30 minutes. And then when it got closer to the show, I posed for an hour. So that was just how I was. And literally I pose every day because I'm either posing with a client or I'm posing myself in some way, shape, or form. So I always have that about an hour of posing still today. And as you go from show to show, your body changes, so your posing has to change. So what I see a lot too with a lot of athletes, pro and amateur, is they pose one way, and it's this way or no way. And I always go, your body's changed a lot since the very first time. You need to change that posing and feel comfortable in the pose. And remember that we don't have a mirror in front of us on stage. So you have to learn how to feel the pose. So I'm all about feeling the pose. It's a mind muscle connection when you're posing. It's not just go into the pose, it's actually feeling your body going into that pose and feeling what works for you to hit that pose. So everybody has their own little like pinches or pains when they're posing. And I always emphasize those so that they know when I'm not there or there's no mirror, you're gonna know that you're hitting that pose correctly because you're gonna feel certain things when you're on stage.
No, and what would you say really differentiates you from the other competitors when it comes to posing? Because you are winning all these best poser awards, and what I mean, do you just think that it just comes more natural for you, or what do you think really makes you different? Because when even like watching videos of you posing on stage, like opposed to other guests that I've had on, I mean, it's like it's a world of difference, to be completely honest.
I pose with passion is what I how I pose. I like to feel the music. I like to draw in the audience into what I'm feeling in my posing or in that song in that moment. I want you to feel what I feel. So I think that's how I stand out above the others. It doesn't matter the type of song I do. I pose with many different. If you've watched some of my stuff, I mean, I got many different styles, and I keep throwing up some videos that I archived from other clients that I've done in the past, just to give people ideas of what I do. But yeah, I just kind of like have to feel the music, and I tell that with everybody I work with for choreography or just normal pose, like just mandatory posing, is you got to pick a song that moves you, that you feel, and you can tell my athletes that I posed on stage versus others. Like Andrea Shaw, I did her posing routine for Rising Phoenix and the Olympia, and she nailed it. Like, I was so proud of her and so excited. I get super excited when I see them perform their routines on stage, even if it's a video. Sometimes it brings tears into my eyes because I can see the passion that I was trying to emphasize when I was doing the choreography and teaching them how to feel their music. So things like that. It's just it's about moving. It's about passion. It's about a work of art. And if you just come up scared with no confidence, you lose that. If you're just like a robot, frontal bicep, turn, or I have to step down, or I have to. No, you're not. Then you're not feeling it. You're just a robot, and everyone's just like, when's everything gonna be over? I hate to say it like that, but
100%.
it's kind of like, okay, you look like you're hurting yourself up there, like. But yeah, so I think that's what it is with me. I'm confident. I love what I do. Like it's truly a passion of mine, and I like to help others enjoy that passion as well.
Absolutely. And you're speaking about Andrea Shaw. I had her on, and I almost need to get a bigger camera. She's taking up the whole damn screen, basically. Where I was like, "Good God, you need to like." So when I'm gonna have her on again in a couple of weeks, and I was like, "Yeah, I might need to get a bigger camera just because that's." But yeah, she's amazing. Couldn't, and she's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet too. I mean, she was just an absolute delight to talk to. But
Yeah, it was truly an honor to do. Like when she hit me up and said, "Hey, I want you to do my routines," and I was like, "Okay."
yeah,
So
well, here's the thing. Like, so many of the guests that I have on, they're like, "Oh, yeah, Kenny Wallach is my posing coach," and I was like, "Why don't you just contact Janeen Lankowski if she's like known as like the greatest?" Like, so that's what I'm gonna tell him from now on is like, do Janeen
I thank
Lankowski.
you.
Like,
I truly appreciate it.
you know, yeah, well, yeah, because I was like, do Kenny Walk, and I was like, well, first of all, Kenny's not a female, so I mean, but I know he's known as like probably the best posing coach of all time, but it's like get Janine Lankowski on because I was like, just look at some of her posing routines. But out of your poses that you do, and this is a question that I ask everyone, what is your favorite pose to do, and what is your least favorite pose to do?
Actually, I don't have. I love all of them. Um, a true poser will love all the poses. I love all of them. And when I was young, I would say abs and thighs was my hardest one. I used to call it the constipation pose until I really fine tuned it and figured it out. And my clients always say that too. Abs and thighs are so hard until I work with them. And I work with a lot of males as well, not just females. I have a lot of male competitors, male bodybuilders, men's physique, all the categories that I work with. And it's just, understanding too how to transition from pose to pose. A lot of people don't understand how important the transition, like the quarter turns are the most important thing. And honestly, this last season, after I threw my back out in Savannah, it was a little bit hard to hit some of my back poses the way I wanted to because my back just would not release and the vertebrae wouldn't go back to where it needed to go and to stay. So it was a lot of pain in the last leg of competition. I'm not gonna lie, but I just, I sucked it up like a champ because that's what we do, and I never showed the pain until I was at home.
Yeah, well, and for someone who does struggle with the ab and thighs, I mean, that's the number one complaint that we hear of all the time from our bodybuilders is that that's the hardest one. What do you recommend for people to help make it a little bit easier for them? Because yeah, that's one pose where I mean, if you look at someone who's just your average poser, it's hard to not make it look like awkward because it's hard to just sort of be fluid in that pose because you're not. It's just not. It's the least natural, I think, of all the poses.
Yeah, so I mean, the easiest thing to do is one. It's always your breathing. You want to always stretch that pose way up high. You want to stretch it up, and you want to tilt your pelvis under. So half of the pose is done when you tilt your pelvis, and then you want to lean back and then crunch just the upper abs, and everything else will fall into place. So it's knowing how to pose it and working with someone that actually can explain it in an exercise because our brain is really designed to exercise. So some of most excuse me, most of our exercises are actually shown on stage without the equipment. And a lot of people don't see that that balance or that crossover. And I see that for everything. Like whenever I see a body or whenever I see someone posing, I'm like, oh, I bet you that person pulls this exercise a little bit wrong. They don't feel the mind muscle connection. And usually when I work with them and I ask them, they're like, yeah, I totally don't do it like that. Like, oops. And then I'm like, well, we need to fix that exercise and work on your posing at the same time. So um yeah, so that's the easiest way to do an abs and thighs.
Well, and that's why I tell them too. It's like you're going to be more sore from most of your posing sessions than you are from your actual workouts because the body's not to be in that flexed amount of state for that long a period of time. But a question that I ask all the pros that I have on is, what is that feeling like when they announce your name and you realize, oh my God, I'm a pro now? Because for anyone out there who's not that familiar with the process, I mean, for so many of these guests, winning their pro card is the highlight of their career, just because that is, just all that hard work that they put into the sport and all that trial and error that the sport entails. You're finally able to compete in pro shows now, and I mean, it's just that positive affirmation. But what was that moment like for you when they announced your name and you realized, oh my God, I'm a pro now?
Um I was shocked actually. Like I was shocked because I'm a very humble person, as you can tell. I'm very like down to earth, And I was I was shocked at first because I won at the North Americans, and I was in Open and Masters. They rewarded me in Masters when I won the Open as well, and I was just kind of like stunned. But then it kind of like hit me after, like it was like what? And then Sean Ray came and interviewed me, and then it was just like, wow, like what just happened here? Like, dang, I'm a pro, And then when I got back, because I won it in the North Americans and I went back up to Canada, they were all like, then I had other Canadians that I was supposed to compete against in Montreal say, oh my God, I was nervous that you were coming in, like, so kind of what I was kind of like, what? And I had all these messages and I was, I'm always polite. And I'm like, I said, well, I'll be in Montreal. Like, I'll see you there, So they were like, what? You're going to compete again? Like, but it was just kind of like to see what to see what they were going to bring. But it was just a really like, I was so grateful, really, because of the hard work. And it took me 14 years to turn pro. So it wasn't like how pros are turning pro now. You really had to prove yourself every single year that you deserve that pro card. And the judges were hard on us, like super hard on us. And I didn't win in Canada, I won in the US. And that's when I knew that my life belonged down here, because I could work with so many more people and really grow my business. And being down in Tampa in Florida, I have grown my business huge. And I'm truly grateful for all the opportunities I have down here. Like, I work with a lot of great gyms, and I have a lot of great athletes that come from all over the country to come down and visit and train and post. So I'm truly grateful and blessed for that.
Well, yeah, and that is just so awesome, and yeah, that's just, I mean, that's one of those feelings where I cannot really compare what it's like just to go through all of that and then to win. Because yeah, we've had so many guests on here. It's like, oh, I competed in like one or two shows and I won my pro card, and I was like, okay, that's just it's like, come on. But now we go to the real meat of the podcast. I mean, coronavirus. I mean, it's been one thing that's impacted our lives in more ways than we could ever imagine. And I mean, especially being in Minnesota, where the gyms just opened up again after they were closed down in November. But being in Florida, where I mean, I don't even know if there ever was a virus down there in Florida. But what has your overall coronavirus journey been like? Because I mean, especially for bodybuilders, where I mean, like whenever the gyms first shut down, I mean, that the gyms are the bodybuilders' drugs, basically. So I mean, it's like you're taking their drugs away, basically. So you're gonna have a hard time. But what was that like for you when this pandemic first hit, and how have you adapted to it? What's your overall experience been like
It's we did shut down here in Florida.
for like a
Like,
day?
no, we were actually shut down for a while.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
we were shut down for about 4 or 5 months down here. And we couldn't get any gym equipment or anything. I used a lot of bands, did a lot of band work. Um as many bands as I possibly could have, and thank God I had a whole whack of them. I ordered them like before, because I was just like, oh, I want to implement some more band stuff in my training, and then the gym closed, and I was like, well, I might as well just use them now. But yeah, it was tough because it was hard to get cardio equipment. They then shut our parks down, so I was training all my clients too at a park. It's just like, why not? We're outside in the fresh air and can't do nothing. And then they ended up closing the parks. And I kept going, this is so ludicrous, like, this is all about health. This virus is I hate to say, a bad flu. Like, they're just trying to do a money grab on it and scare people. And I hate to say it, the fear in people is gonna get them. And the people that don't have the fear about it are going to be the survivors. And that's the way how I look at it. And there's always been a virus that has to wipe out the weak to let the strong. And I mean, it's happened for many decades. Like,
I'm a historian, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So a lot of people probably like, man, she's cold hearted. No, I'm not. I'm actually realistic with the
it's
whole
nature
thing.
and biology and basically everything. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So and honestly, there's been tons of movies about it back like, if you go back in the archives, I'm a movie buff too. Um so yeah, so it was challenging. And then my friends needed some help fixing up their gym to get it ready, and they said that I could come in and work out when we're fixing stuff up. So I was very blessed to be able to get a gym like 3 times a week. So I would, do my major workouts while I was helping them, and then my rest of my workouts at my house. But the hardest part was really to find food. And when we had that toilet paper thing going on, I was so busy with my clients that when I did open my cupboard, I was like, I don't even have any. Like, what? And my best friend Nancy Lewis, she's a retired pro as well. She's like, dude, I can't find any food. I said, well, I'll go get food for the both of us. So I was just like going through every every store I could find to find something for us to eat. You made it work. I still dieted through the whole pandemic. Like I dieted for a whole year for this season, and that was honestly that was the most challenging thing in my life. Would I diet a whole year again? No. Uh, did I do it? Yes. Did I do okay? Yeah, I did okay. But I could have been better if I had a little bit more rest. But you were kind of like living like, when is it going to be over? Like, when are things going to start going? You didn't want to be off too long because you want to make sure you had enough time to get ready for what you wanted to do. And so yeah, that made it a little challenging, but it also made you be more self-aware of who you are as a person and what you can get through, like what you can overcome when people say you can't do something. There's always a way around stuff. There's always a ways around fixing a predicament you're in or a situation you're in by just having an open mind and being positive and self-motivated. Like that, I have to say that must be the key for how I am from then to now, and I still am. I'm truly grateful that our gyms are open up in Florida. We don't have to wear a mask in the gym. If you feel uncomfortable and you need to wear one, knock yourself out. But breathing in carbon monoxide through a workout is very unhealthy. And I train a lot of medical people, and they were like, "Yeah, we will do a la carte because we are not putting masks on. Like we don't ask for masks in our office, Like so, it's all a preference, really, when it comes to that kind of stuff. But overall, it was mentally challenging, and it just showed who was the stronger ones to work through it, right? Like if some of them weren't strong enough mentally to get through it, then they sat on the sidelines. In other words,
Well, you just mentioned Nancy Lewis. Is this Nancy Lewis?
yes, that's my best friend.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, she's huge. I might need to have her on the podcast then now, because good God. But yes, so she's well. When did she last compete?
She competed last with me in 2012 here in Tampa.
Okay, yeah, that's amazing. I'm gonna need to have her on the podcast then, because yeah, that's just that is just insane. And talk about that's motivation enough right now. Good God, but yeah,
Yeah,
with this whole pandemic, yeah, it's just been interesting where it's like, well, I also have an excuse to being up in Minnesota where, I mean, this is the season where, you can put on, 10, 15 pounds and no one cares because, let's be honest, you don't want to be lean when it's negative 15 degrees
no,
outside. That's not a fun time. So, hey, I got the excuse right now. So, I can have a pizza and, my burgers and beer, now I can, let myself go a little bit. And then, once we hit around, March, April, because let's be honest, in Minnesota, we don't really have spring until at least May. March,
yeah.
April comes, then you can finally start to, get on that treadmill a little bit more and, start to lose a little bit of that. So, that's what my schedule is currently looking like. But I mean, two of the questions that I think are just so fascinating to ask, because they're not asked really as much as they should be, is that so many people do not understand that the most important thing when it comes to this lifestyle is sleep. And for anyone that disagrees with me on that, I always tell them, pull an all-nighter and then go and try to work out and tell me how that lasts. I did that in college twice, and both times I lasted about halfway through and I was like, screw this, I can't do this anymore. I just went back to my dorm and slept. But what is your journey or experience with sleep like? Because like I told you before, I'm a night owl. So when you messaged me saying, "Hey, are we still on today at like 11:15 my time?" That's what woke me up. And I was like, "Oh yeah, we're still on. Yeah, so that's good." So I had my alarm set
It's
for
up at
10.
6 a.m. So
Well, so I had my alarm set for 10 o'clock my time, and then it was one of those things where I was still half asleep, so then I just turned my alarm off and then went back to sleep, and then so thankfully you messaged me that, because otherwise I might still be sleeping, and then I might get a call on my thing, and I was like, oh crap, give me like 5 minutes to get ready, and that's happened before. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, so literally that's what happened, and then I was like, oh yeah, so I'm a night owl, so I was up until about 3 a.m. last night editing podcasts. That's normally what I do now because there's nothing really else to do. But what is your sleep schedule like, and how are you able to get that proper amount of sleep? Because especially in this day and age, I mean, people struggle to find that proper amount of sleep.
I'm a person that can sleep like 5 to 6 hours and I'm good. So I've
Screw
always been
you, okay? Come
a
on.
person I don't need a shit ton of sleep at night. But I do like to have a nap in the afternoon, like 20 minutes if I can before I train. Like so after I eat my one meal, I like to lay down for about 20 minutes to let it digest so I can actually use that and utilize that when I'm in the gym. So I try to time everything that way, especially around competition season. I tend to have like two small naps or a longer nap just so that I can get the rest of my stuff done. Because I still train clients all the way through prep. Like I have clients competing all over the country, and also all the way into Russia and stuff. So it's like I always have to be on the ball. My phone is always going, but I learned to set my times. So at certain times of the day, I will shut my phone off. I put it on silent so that the messages will come in, but they know I'll get them in the morning, kind of thing. But rest is totally important, like soaks and Epsom salt baths, and just chill out time where you're not having to be in front of the computer and working, and then doing the training and stuff. So it's always good to have that balance, and rest is key. Like right now, I'm working with a new trainer, JP in the UK, Jordan Peters, and I'm not used to having so many days like rest days. So I'm like, my body's like loving it. And I used to do that way back in the day, like over 15 years ago. I used to train that style. So it's kind of great to go back to your roots again, and make sure you have that rest. Like you got to listen to your body. Like going hardcore 24/7 is not healthy. It's good to rest and just, kind of let your hair down and chill a little bit, and regroup, and then go in stronger, because I find that my training is I'm getting lifts that are heavier than they were before, which is awesome, and my injuries are healing. So as we age, I'm not a young buck. As we age, little things creep up when you least expect it. You might look the wrong way, and then you're like, what? So yeah, it's very important.
Well, and also my trigger word is cardio. I hate it more than life itself. I mean, you just even mentioned that word to me, and well, and let's be honest. When I say cardio, I mean I could walk on a treadmill for like 8 hours a day, and I'd be completely fine. When I say cardio, I mean like running and stuff. But what is your relationship with cardio like? Because I mean, we have some people that are like ex-marathon runners, and I was like, okay, that's a mental illness in and of itself. That I mean, like you like to do that. Like I don't know why, but what is your experience with cardio like? And I mean, what is that like too as you get into your prep? Because I mean, let's be honest, if you're a bodybuilder, cardio is going to be a major part of your life.
I use cardio for a lot. That's where I get a lot of my major ideas for business, is doing cardio for some reason. And if I have to read stuff or do research, I have to read it walking on the treadmill. If I sit still and read, forget it. I'm like out, like out like a light. So I have to be active. So cardio is not always the end of the world. I do a lot of hit cardio, and I'll do it with some friends sometimes, or just I just get up and do it. Like first thing in the morning, I get up and do my 30 minutes of cardio, start my day, boom, it's done, and it just energizes me for the day. It's like, okay, I'm alive. I'm sweating. I'm alive. Let's go.
Hey, that's definitely not a bad attitude to have. But if someone were to walk up to you and say, Janine, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, and everyone would go along with it. What would be one thing that you would like to see changed?
um, I think weight classes in the pro circuit now, just because we have a lot of people that are short, like myself, and we're like middleweights, and then you have the heavyweights, the ones that are like 5'6" and up, are coming in super heavy. So it's hard to really compare the bodies when they start to get that big. So I would
Like, yeah,
say,
like if me and her were to go and step on the same stage, you could not compare those from someone who's a full foot taller than her. It's a completely different world. Yeah.
and I'm always between like Monique Jones and like I think it was between Margie. So they're both taller than me, and then there's like me, a Smurf, right? And they're always like, "You're a Smurf," like, and I'm just like, "Okay, it is what it is." But so yeah, I would definitely say a weight class, and I also think too, even for women's physique, they need to do what the men are doing, like height to weight ratio for women's physique and men's physique. Like it just makes more sense, because these women are going too far, and then once they do step into bodybuilding, they're lacking body parts. Like a bodybuilder is fully formed. That means from top to bottom, not high lats and no low lats, or no calves, or no, they're missing parts, because that's just how women's physique is very different from female bodybuilding. Yes, there are form of body like women's bodybuilding, but they're missing those, wide lats that go way down, and things like that. So I would say definitely weight classes, and then height weight ratio for women's physique. I would love to see that happen. I think it would be, excuse me, a lot more interesting with the sport, and also it would be a lot that people could maintain, and people could pursue. Like sometimes, when it gets too big, like men or women, you know, they kind of lose that. Like how can I ever obtain to that? Like how can I ever
I'm not
reach
gonna
that
ever
goal?
look like Ronnie Coleman, let's be honest.
No, and you're not going to look like Phil Heath
Yeah.
or Big Ramy. I mean, that's just who they are. But a lot of people want to always strive to get to that spot, right? So I think with the weight classes, it would give people that are just starting out a little bit more incentive. And that's what we have to do to keep the sport totally alive is to keep that incentive going 24/7.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I love to ask this question as my final one before we do shout outs and everything. If we were to talk to you a year from today, now again, if we were to have talked to you a year ago today and you would have predicted a global pandemic that would have, changed everything that we know of, I would have called you a liar and bet my entire life savings against you. So it goes to show you how much we really know about what a year is going to hold. Who knows? We could be talking a year from now and you could see gunshots in the background. You could see a fire in the background. Who knows where the world's going to be at a year from now? But in an ideal world, where would you like to be at in a year from today if we were to talk in your bodybuilding, just in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk to you a year from today?
A year from today, I would say my own house with a huge garage that I can have all my posing clients right there at my place. Plus, it would be like a four-bedroom house. So if I had clients coming in from out of state or whatever, they could rent a room. And if they are staying for a week to train and do everything, you know what I mean? So it'd be kind of like a one-stop shop, as well as I don't want to have my own gym again because I've already been there and done that. So I just would like to have a place where I could always make sure I can work with clients. I have my mirrors just a certain way, angled and all that good stuff. And of course, be the top, one of the top five, top three female bodybuilders in the world, and keep being the best poser in the country. So
I mean, that's the only bad thing because everyone says like I want to be one of the top, and I just tell them it's like no offense, but Andrea Shaw I don't think is going to be retiring anytime soon, so that's the only problem I really see there. But yeah,
but
so
her physique, her we talked about this too. She's got a physique that's obtainable.
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
not, it's
yeah.
she's very well balanced. She's got she's got everything there. So and to get bigger, might ruin her physique.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say when you
Some people don't look good when they get too
yeah,
big.
anytime you have the arms that are the size of most people's thighs, though, that's always kind of a thing where you're just like, what is like the? But no, yeah, I totally agree with that too. Where it is obtainable, like the for that last Olympia when they announced that shoot, what's her name? She'd I'm gonna get killed for forget that she wasn't competing.
Iris Kyle.
Iris Kyle, yeah, the moment that they announced that she wasn't going to see, everyone, I'm sorry that I forgot that. I'm having a brain fart. Remember, I got up just before this podcast started, so I'm still doing that. But yeah, so the moment that they announced, it, I was like, oh wow, it's kind of wide open because yeah, if she would have been in there, it probably would have been like, okay, who's coming in second then? But no, yeah, and I definitely think that you can. Plus, with your posing too, I mean, it's like that takes off so much more pressure, I think, than a lot of these other people. Because if you know that you're like amazing at posing, that's really got to really set things apart. But again, you guys, we cannot thank Janine enough for coming on and for sharing her story. And I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below. Get in touch with her. And from now on, I will recommend you to everyone else who says that they have Kenny Walk or anyone like that. Because let's be honest, Kenny's already got enough business in and of itself. I don't know how he can maintain it. He's had like 200 of my guests have come on said that they've doing posing with him. And I was like, I don't even know if there's enough time in the day for that. But again, thank you so much for coming on. And Janine, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Just like all my friends and fans, family. I do a shout out for my best friend Nancy, and I have a nonprofit started for her, like our animals that are seniors. So that's links actually in my Instagram. It's JP's Animal Refuge. So it's for senior animals. So donations are always welcome for that. We would greatly appreciate it as we're trying to put a new house on the property so the animals have more places to, stay and be comfortable and loved until their years are done and they cross the rainbow. So that's like my other project that I'm working on right now. And just like everybody, like TC1 Gel, Microblading by Kelly Lynn, Egg White International.
Kelly Lynn, another guest that we've had on like 3 times on this podcast too. She's great as well. Yep.
So, just all my people, all the both powerhouse gyms in Florida, North and Hillsborough. So that's pretty much it. Other than that, I just want to thank everybody and give them all love and keep doing your thing and keep on grinding. Things happen when you least expect it, and if you have a dream and a vision, freaking focus on that and make it happen.
Absolutely. I couldn't think of a better way to end that too. Yeah, it's like the mind is its only limitation. Again, thank you so much, Janine, for coming on. I really appreciate it. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.